The planet of Zogoth 7 was unlike anything Marcus had imagined. The sky above him was a vibrant lavender, constantly shifting between shades like a mood ring, almost as if the atmosphere itself had a personality. The trees, which seemed unsure whether to stay upright or sway like dancers, swayed in strange, unpredictable ways. The air had a peculiar scent of pickles, which Marcus found oddly endearing, though it did make him wonder about the planetary diet. But the most bizarre sight of all was the creatures that roamed the landscape. Large, marshmallow-like blobs with tiny legs sticking out wobbled around like jelly on a plate. Marcus couldn't help but stare at them. It was like a dream. A very, very odd dream. Well, this is something, Marcus muttered to himself. His spacesuit felt tight, especially around his chest, and he wondered if he had overestimated how cool he'd look in it. He glanced down at the bulky translator, device strapped to his wrist, which was beeping erratically like an overly excited toddler. He really didn't feel as prepared as he thought he would for this mission. Beside him, Ziki, the alien ambassador, hovered gracefully. She looked like a floating jellyfish with a large eye on top, and her translucent skin shimmered under the lavender sky. Her voice sounded like a blend of a bell ringing and someone gargling underwater, which made Marcus feel even more out of place. "Ziki," Marcus began, trying to adjust to the strange world around him. "Could you... I don't know. Tell them I don't know how to use this thing yet?" He gestured to his translator device, which beeped for no reason at all. Ziki blinked, her large eye once, and a soft chime escaped from her, almost like a giggle or perhaps a hiccup. "No need for apologies, Marcus. They're used to... the clumsy." Marcus grimaced, his face flushing slightly. "Clumsy, huh? Great first impression." As if on cue, a large gelatinous creature, who appeared to be a local chef, waddled over with a tray full of pulsating, brightly colored fruits. Without warning, the tray was thrust into Marcus's hands, and before he could protest, the chef was already moving on to the next guest. Marcus glanced down at the fruit, which looked like something straight out of a science fiction movie, slimy, squishy, and alive. Ziki leaned in and whispered, "It's customary to eat it in one bite. It's a sign of respect." Marcus stared at the fruit in his hand. "Are you sure about this?" Ziki nodded, and in a voice that sounded a little too mischievous, she added, "It might squirt." "Well, that's comforting," Marcus muttered under his breath, but still he took a deep breath and bit into the fruit in one go. Almost instantly it erupted, sending a stream of bright green goo splattering all over his face. The aliens around him burst into laughter, their high-pitched giggles echoing in the strange alien air. "Oh, that's just lovely," Marcus mumbled, wiping his face with his sleeve in a futile attempt to clean up. The goo, now dripping down his chin, was sticky and smelled faintly of something both sweet and tangy. The gelatinous chef-turned-jelly blob creature waved a tendril at Marcus, offering another fruit. This time, Marcus stared at the fruit wide-eyed. He had no idea whether to take it or run for his life. Ziki's voice, soft and amused, came from beside him. "The goo signifies you have great potential to handle Zogothian delicacies," Marcus sighed, his face still sticky. "Yeah, it also signifies I'm going to need a shower," he muttered, causing more laughter to ripple through the crowd. Despite the overwhelming embarrassment, Marcus found himself oddly charmed by the whole situation. The aliens around him seemed genuinely delighted by his confusion, and there was something strangely comforting about the fact that they weren't judging him. They were just enjoying the spectacle. But just as he was about to ask Ziki if there was an Earth version of this fruit, the sky above him darkened in a way that was impossible to ignore. A loud rumble echoed through the air, and the clouds began to twist and swirl, forming a spiraling vortex. All the aliens around Marcus stopped in their tracks and looked up at the sky in unison. The atmosphere grew tense, and Marcus couldn't help but feel a sudden surge of anxiety. Was he about to witness an alien invasion, or perhaps some kind of celestial prank? His heart raced as he stared at the swirling clouds, waiting for something, anything, to happen. The swirling vortex in the sky had caused Marcus a lot of confusion, but the truth was even more bizarre than he imagined. It wasn't an alien invasion, as he had feared, but rather a ceremonial greeting for the Earth ambassador. Of course, Marcus had no idea about this, so when the vortex finally settled, he found himself staring at a floating platform with an alien figure standing atop it. This wasn't just any alien. The leader of Zogoth 7, Zhara, had a glowing nose that twinkled like a disco ball, casting light in all directions. It was impossible not to notice, and clearly it was the most stylish feature about her. "Welcome, Earthling," Zhara boomed in a deep, booming voice. The other Zogothians around Marcus stood perfectly still, staring at him as though he were the most important guest they had ever received. Marcus, still unsure of what was happening, mumbled, Thank you, for the goop earlier?" His words were awkward, and his gaze kept darting to the glowing nose, unsure of how to address someone who seemed so shiny. Zhara smiled warmly, too warmly for Marcus's liking. "It's part of our ancient traditions," she said. "Now come, we must initiate the official greeting." Before Marcus could even process her words, two Zogothian dancers floated over to him. They were dressed in something like holographic tutus, which floated around them like jellyfish. They began to sway in rhythm, but the music that played in Marcus's head was clearly not matching up with their movements. "I wasn't aware there was going to be a dance-off," Marcus muttered under his breath, trying to figure out the rhythm. His feet were hopelessly trying to follow along, but it was clear he was out of his depth. Zhara's glowing eye flickered with amusement. "Oh, it's not a dance-off, but you should try." Being the good sport that he was, Marcus decided to go along with it, trying to mimic the dancers. Unfortunately, his attempt was far from graceful. His legs flailed a bit, and at one point he tripped, knocking into one of the dancers. She let out a strange sound that was a mixture of a giggle and a cough. "That was unexpected," Marcus said, his face flushing with embarrassment. Zhara raised an eyebrow, clearly entertained. "I see that your Earth dance is creative." Marcus smiled sheepishly. "Yeah, we call it the two-left-foot shuffle." After the embarrassing dancing fiasco, Zhara invited Marcus to join in a traditional Zogothian feast. Feast seemed like a bit of a misnomer. The spread consisted mostly of glowing puddles, of liquid and squishy vegetables that seemed to change colors the longer you stared at them. Marcus had learned that Zogothians didn't really eat like humans. They absorbed nutrients through osmosis, meaning they didn't chew or even taste their food. This made things a little awkward for Marcus as he hesitantly dipped his hand into a glowing puddle, unsure whether he was about to eat food or just touch some strange air freshener. Zhara, however, wasn't bothered at all. In fact, she seemed amused when Marcus tried the green liquid and immediately turned a bright purple. "I see you've experienced our signature drink," Zhara said, her voice full of humor. "It's supposed to help you connect with the planet's energy." Marcus, still purple and trying to adjust to the strange sensation, nodded weakly. "Great. I'm really feeling that connection." Despite the chaos, Marcus couldn't help but notice how playful Zhara was. She had a mischievous side that reminded him of someone back on Earth, someone he might have gone on a date with if he wasn't so socially awkward. The way she teased him and laughed made him feel comfortable, like they were already friends. "Careful there, Earthling," Zhara said, sidling up next to him with a playful glint in her eye. "You might just get used to it." Marcus glanced at her, feeling his cheeks flush as he realized how close they were. "I think I'm already too deep into this weirdness." Zhara's smile softened, her glowing nose shimmering in the light. I wouldn't mind showing you more of our customs. Marcus blinked, slightly taken aback. Customs? Like more dances? Zhara's voice turned a little softer, and she looked at him in a way that made his heart race a little. No, she said, her eyes twinkling. More like this. She reached out and tapped the glowing gem on his wrist. Would you like to try a Zogothian handshake? Marcus raised an eyebrow, unsure. A handshake? What is it, like a touch thing? Or are we going to end up in another goo situation? Zhara laughed, and Marcus felt a strange flutter in his chest. She sounded so at ease, so natural, and for the first time since arriving, Marcus felt like he was starting to relax. Just then, a loud explosion suddenly echoed in the distance, causing all the Zogothians to freeze in place. The air crackled with an unfamiliar energy, and Marcus turned to Zhara, who now stood completely still, her face unreadable. "What's going on?" Marcus asked, his heart pounding in his chest as he glanced around, unsure of what was happening. Zhara's expression softened, and she gave him a small, mysterious smile. "Welcome to the real adventure, Marcus," she said cryptically. "The fun is just beginning." The explosion that had startled Marcus earlier turned out to be nothing more than a Zogothian celebration firework, a festive mishap that only served to amuse the aliens around him. Zhara, however, didn't seem fazed at all. Her calmness made Marcus wonder if anything on this planet could actually surprise her, or if she was just used to the unpredictable nature of Zogoth 7. The festivities quickly resumed, and Marcus found himself walking through a bustling marketplace alongside Zhara. It was a vibrant and colorful place, filled with stalls, selling strange trinkets and glowing objects that floated above the ground. The air was filled with a soft, melodic music that seemed to play from nowhere, adding to the bizarre yet charming atmosphere. Zhara walked with ease through the crowd, while Marcus stumbled along trying to keep up, feeling like a tourist who had no idea what was going on. "So," Marcus began, trying to steer the conversation in a more comfortable direction, "I've seen you guys eat some pretty weird stuff, but what do you do for fun around here?" Zhara's eyes gleamed with mischief. "We play Grava Chase. It's a sport involving gravity-defying balls and tiny gravity zones. You should try it." Marcus, trying to sound confident, said, "I'm pretty good at soccer back home." In reality, though, his soccer skills were mostly limited to kicking the ball in the wrong direction. "Oh, I'm sure you are," Zhara teased with a wink. "Let's see if you're up to Zogothian standards." Before Marcus could protest, Zhara grabbed his arm and pulled him toward a small arena. Inside, several aliens of all shapes and sizes were already playing the game, bouncing a glowing, semi-transparent ball across the arena. Some players floated effortlessly in mid-air, while others darted across the ground with incredible speed. The ball seemed to move with a mind of its own, zipping around in unpredictable ways. "You've got this, Earthling," Zhara said, her voice full of encouragement. "Don't worry about the floating. Just keep your eye on the ball." Marcus glanced at the shimmering ball, which seemed to wobble in mid-air as if it were alive. "Sure, no problem," he said, though he was already feeling a little out of his depth. As the game began, it quickly became clear that Marcus had no idea what he was doing. The ball bounced off him in random directions, hitting him in the chest, the back, and even in the face, as if it were deliberately trying to make him look foolish. The alien spectators cheered, not to support him, but because his every clumsy move was more entertaining than the game itself. Zhara, of course, was an expert. She zipped around the arena with graceful ease, sending the ball soaring effortlessly through the air with a flick of her wrist. Every time Marcus stumbled or tripped, she would laugh softly, a musical sound that seemed to make his heart race. Despite himself, "You're quite the dancer," Zhara said with a teasing smile, after Marcus accidentally bumped into one of the other players. "Is this another Earth tradition?" Out of breath and embarrassed, Marcus smiled sheepishly. "Yeah, it's called falling with style. After the game, which Marcus, not surprisingly, lost by a large margin, Zhara invited him to a small gathering at her home. The evening was set in a cozy room lit by glowing lanterns that floated gently in midair. The soft light filled the room, creating a peaceful, almost magical atmosphere. Marcus felt slightly overwhelmed, still trying to process everything he had experienced on Zogoth 7, but he couldn't deny that he was starting to enjoy himself. "Tell me more about your Earth customs," Zhara asked, her voice warm and curious. "What do you do for fun?" Marcus scratched his head, trying to think of something that didn't sound totally bizarre. "Well, we play a game called Twister. It's kind of like a strange dance-off, where you twist your body into different shapes depending on the color you're told to put your hand or foot on." Zhara's eyes lit up with excitement. "Show me! I must learn this Twister." Marcus couldn't help but laugh at her enthusiasm. They set up a makeshift twister mat in the middle of the room, and Marcus was surprised at how eager Zhara was to try it. At first, it was just funny. Zhara didn't quite get the idea of contorting her body into strange positions, and she kept knocking over furniture as she tried to twist her limbs into impossible shapes. The room was full of laughter as she tried and failed to master the game. But what really surprised Marcus was how competitive Zhara became. Every time he successfully made a move, she would let out an exaggerated groan and shift to an even more difficult position, determined to win. You think you can win against Zhara of Zogoth 7, she teased, her voice filled with playful challenge. "Not a chance," Marcus replied, trying to catch his breath. Before he could react, he was on the floor, tangled in limbs, laughing so hard he could barely breathe. As the evening continued, the two of them sat down in the soft glow of the lanterns, talking about everything from the weird and wonderful customs of Zogoth 7 to their mutual curiosity about each other's worlds. The conversation flowed easily, and Marcus couldn't help but feel like he was finally connecting with someone who wasn't just an alien, but a person who shared. His sense of humor, Zhara's teasing, became softer as the night wore on. She would brush a strand of hair from Marcus's face or nudge him gently when he said something particularly funny. Marcus, still a bit out of his element, began to realize just how drawn he was to her. Despite the strangeness of everything around him, Zhara made him feel comfortable. "So," Marcus began, his voice softer now, "is this what dating is like on Zogoth 7? A little dancing, a little bit of twister?" Zhara laughed, a light and melodic sound. "Well, for me it's a little more complex, but you, Earthling, are quite entertaining." Marcus flashed her a grin. "I do try. So, you're not sick of me yet?" Zhara's smile softened, and for the first time, her voice lost some of its playful teasing. "No," she said, her tone more tender than before. "I'm far from sick of you." Just as their conversation seemed to be taking a more romantic turn, a loud mechanical whirring filled the air. A robotic messenger appeared at Zhara's door, its voice completely monotone. "Excuse me, Lady Zhara," the robot said. "The Zogothian Council requests your presence immediately." Zhara stood up, brushing herself off. "It seems my duty calls, but don't worry, Marcus. We'll finish our game later." Marcus stared at her for a moment, momentarily unsure of what had just happened. Duty? Was that a code for something? It seemed like there was always something unexpected happening on Zogoth 7, but now, with the evening taking a more serious turn, Marcus couldn't help but feel a bit anxious about what might come next. The next morning, Marcus found himself caught in the middle of a Zogothian festival. Bizarre creatures were dancing in intricate patterns all around him, their movements so graceful and fluid that he felt like a clumsy human in comparison. Zhara had invited him to join, though Marcus still wasn't sure whether this was an actual Zogothian tradition or just an excuse for her to spend more time with him. She had mentioned something about a bonding ritual, but the real purpose was still a mystery. "So, how exactly does this bonding ritual work?" Marcus asked. Nervously looking around at the crowd, Zhara flashed a mischievous smile. "It's simple. You just have to hold hands with someone you trust." Marcus blinked, feeling a bit confused. "Wait, so I'm supposed to hold hands with you?" Zhara's smile grew wider. "Yes, and then we both go through an obstacle." "Course of sorts. It's a test of emotional compatibility." Marcus blinked again. "Wait a minute, you mean this isn't just an alien festival? This is some sort of test?" Zhara laughed, a soft, melodic sound. "Oh, don't worry, Marcus, it's all in good fun." As Marcus joined Zhara in the middle of the dance circle, he quickly realized that the ritual involved much more than just hand-holding. There were a series of strange, unpredictable obstacles to navigate, some of which included hopping over levitating hoops or avoiding glowing puddles of liquid. It seemed the entire purpose was to see if they could maintain composure under pressure. While holding hands, Marcus, already embarrassed by the idea of holding hands in public, found himself even more flustered as they moved through the challenges. One obstacle was a narrow tunnel that shrank as they entered. Marcus had not anticipated how tight the space would become, and he wasn't quite prepared for how close he would be to Zhara. Zhara. "This is a bit tight," Marcus said, his voice strained as he tried to squeeze through the tunnel without bumping into her. Zhara's voice came from beside him, soft and teasing. "I know, Marcus, but it's about trusting your partner." Marcus could feel his heart racing. Was it the closeness, the strange circumstances, or was it something else entirely? As they moved through the rest of the course, Marcus couldn't help but notice the chemistry between them. Despite the chaos of the obstacles, Zhara's teasing and laughter made everything feel more playful than serious. At one point, Marcus found himself crawling on all fours to avoid a floating puddle of glowing goo. Zhara giggled softly, clearly entertained by his awkwardness. "You know," Zhara said, her voice warm, "this is much more fun than I expected." Marcus grinned, despite himself. "I'll try not to take that as a compliment." But deep down, he realized something. He was enjoying this more than he'd ever thought he would. The light-hearted atmosphere, the playful teasing, and the way Zhara looked at him made him feel more comfortable than he'd felt in a long time. As they neared the end of the obstacle course, Zhara whispered, "Now there's one final challenge." Marcus raised an eyebrow, confused but intrigued. "Final challenge? What is it?" Zhara smirked, her voice taking on a mysterious tone. "You have to face your deepest fear." Marcus swallowed, his heart racing. Was this some sort of alien joke, or was she actually serious? The next moment, they were standing in front of a huge floating mirror. Marcus's reflection appeared in the glass, but it was distorted into exaggerated, funny shapes. His body looked all wrong, stretched in places, squished in others. It was almost cartoonish. "What do you see in the mirror, Marcus?" Zhara asked, her voice clearly amused by his reaction. Marcus grimaced at the ridiculous reflection. "I see a guy who's in way over his head." Zhara's smile softened, and for the first time, her eyes weren't teasing. "Well, that's the first step to overcoming your fears," Marcus snorted. "I guess so, but I still don't understand the point of this." Zhara's expression became more serious, but her tone remained playful. "The point, Marcus, is that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to trust the journey and the person next to you." Marcus blinked, processing her words. It hit him then. This wasn't just a silly test. It was about trust, about accepting that he didn't have to be perfect. And maybe, just maybe, he trusted Zhara too. Zhara leaned a little closer, her glowing nose radiating warmth. "Marcus," she said, her tone now teasing but affectionate, "I've been thinking, maybe this ritual isn't the only thing I've been enjoying." Marcus's heart skipped a beat. "Wait, what do you mean?" Zhara smiled and gently poked him in the chest. "I think I've grown rather fond of you, Earthling," Marcus felt. A wave of relief wash over him. "Yeah?" he said, his voice a little more nervous than he intended. "I was kind of hoping you'd say that." For a moment, the ridiculousness of the mirror and the challenges faded into the background. They were no longer just an alien leader and a clumsy human. They were two people standing in front of each other, unsure but hopeful. Zhara placed a hand on his chest. "So what are you going to do about it?" Marcus grinned, his nervousness fading. "Well, I guess I'm going to do what any Earthling would do." Zhara raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "And what's that?" "I'll take you out to dinner," he said, a playful glint in his eye. "And no glowing goo this time." Zhara laughed softly, her glowing nose pulsing with light. "That sounds perfect." As they walked away from the mirror, Marcus couldn't help but feel lighter than he had in days. Zhara was beside him, and everything felt right. But then, from behind them, a voice called out, "Marcus, Zhara, where are you two going?" They turned to see a group of Zogothian officials approaching, their expressions unreadable. Zhara raised an eyebrow, looking at Marcus with a mischievous smile. "Oh, this is going to be fun." Marcus could only grin. The adventure was far from over. Weeks had passed since the whirlwind of strange customs and playful rituals had brought Marcus and Zhara closer together. Now, they sat side by side at a small outdoor cafe, nestled beneath the soft glow of Zogoth 7's twin moons. The air was cool, and the atmosphere was peaceful, as if the planet itself was taking a moment to relax along with them. "So," Marcus began, his fingers nervously stirring his drink, a bit of an awkward habit he had picked up, "is this what Earthlings call a date?" Zhara smiled, the glow from her nose making her expression even more enchanting. "I think it's more than just a date, don't you?" she teased, her voice light but filled with warmth. Marcus chuckled, his nervousness easing just a little. "Yeah, I guess so." He looked across the table at her, realizing that it wasn't just a date. It was something more, something deeper, and he was starting to feel like he didn't want it to end. As they sat there enjoying the quiet evening, a small alien child suddenly ran up to their table, a bright smile plastered across its face. It held out a tiny flower that shimmered with an ethereal glow. Without saying a word, the child handed the flower to Zhara. Marcus raised an eyebrow in surprise. "What's that?" he asked, genuinely curious. Zhara accepted the flower with a graceful smile, her hand brushing lightly against the child's as she took it. "It's a symbol of unity between our worlds," she explained, looking at the delicate blossom in her hands. "It's our way of saying we're not so different after all." Marcus smiled, touched by the gesture. He didn't fully understand all the customs and traditions of Zogoth 7, but that moment made him feel like he truly belonged here, in a way he hadn't expected. He was no longer just an outsider. He was a part of something bigger. The moment was brief but beautiful, and after the child skipped off, Zhara turned to Marcus with a playful gleam in her eye. She leaned in a little closer, her voice dropping to a soft whisper. "So, Earthling, what's next?" Marcus grinned, feeling a warmth spread through him at her words. "I guess we'll just have to see where the next adventure takes us," he said, the playful teasing between them now more comfortable than ever. Zhara's glowing nose flickered with excitement, and her smile widened. "I'm looking forward to it," she said, her voice filled with an affectionate playfulness that made Marcus's heart flutter. As they walked back toward the landing platform, ready for whatever came next, Marcus couldn't help but feel like he had found something special, something unexpected. There were still many strange, hilarious and heartwarming adventures ahead of them, but whatever happened, he knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning. The sky above them shimmered with the light of the twin moons, and as they walked, side by side, Marcus felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. And just like that, with a quiet chuckle and a shared glance, the adventure wasn't just about alien cultures and strange rituals anymore. It was about them, their journey, together, filled with humor, heart, and the promise of many more wonderful moments to come.